Hello and welcome to the next video based on secularisation. So this is secularisation part 2. It's page 54 to 57 within your textbook. So we're just going to crack on with this now today. So the first section we're going to look at is sex cults and secularisation. So supporters of the theory of secularisation do not see the existence and apparent growth of sects, new religious movements and cults as providing any significant evidence against the decline in the importance of religion. Now, Brian Wilson in 1982 argues that such religious movements and organisations are almost irrelevant to society as a whole. Their members live in their own enclosed, encapsulated little worlds, which are of little influence or interest to those of us who are not members. He suggests that they are largely provide religion to dropouts. So membership numbers are small and membership is often short-lived. Obviously, as the sect or the cult or the new religious movement provides that individual with the appropriate skills, which then provides them social mobility, they no longer will adhere to the rules of that particular fraction or little group. As we can see from this, the dropouts of society, this is referring to obviously the hippies type angle in terms of people, those that feel relatively deprived, and those that will not have their spiritual thirst quenched, as it were. Now, Paul Berger in 1970 described sex as an island in a secular sea. He argues that strong religions can only survive and maintain their beliefs if they separate themselves from largely secular, wider society through living in communes. Now, Steve Bruce, 2002, argues that small numbers of joining such movements are a fraction of the numbers leaving mainstream churches. Now, the most popular accommodating groups, such as the Transcendental Meditation or the Erhard Seminar Trainings and the Hare Krishna, have only a few thousand members in the UK, and they have much less impact on people's lives than traditional religions do. However, others see the vitality of these types of religion as evidence against secularisation. So Andrew Greeley here in 1972 sees the growth of new religious movements as part of the process of resacralisation, by which religion starts to regain its importance again. Now, the emergence of a renewed interest in and belief in the sacred taking place in societies such as Britain and the USA. Now, there is statistical evidence to back this up. Now, statistics do suggest some increase in the number of members of sex cults and new religious movements and churches which do not believe in the Holy Trinity. So this is linking to Christianity. Now, the following estimates are compiled by Brearley in 2005, which we're going to look at a little table now. Now, obviously from this, you can see from 2000 to 2005, amongst most of these sects and new religious movements, we have seen a increase in the amount of members. So for example, even if it's just by 50 with Satanism, there's still 50 new members that have joined. With all the others, you have either seen thousands in terms of new members or just under that. Now, according to Brearley's figures, the active membership of non-Trinitarian and other religions, so including ethnic minority religions, rose from 2.4% of the population in 2000 to 3.1% in 2010. Now, in lesson, I got you guys to look over secularisation and New Age, so I'm just going to run through this verbally. Now, Steve Bruce in 1996 does not see the growth of the New Age as posing a threat to the validity. Now, Steve Bruce does not see the growth of New Age as posing a threat to the validity of the theory of secularisation. Now, he believes that New Age beliefs are weak, largely personal, and have no or little influence on the wider society. However, others argue that a significant revival of religious and spiritual beliefs is taking place through the New Age. Now, the key study that we looked at here was Paul Heelas and Linda Woodhead, the Kendall Project. Now, Paul Heelas and Linda Woodhead in 2005 conducted a detailed study of religious belief in Kendall, which is a Cumbrian town near to the Lake District. They collected data on every religious group in town, as well as all New Age activities that they could find. Now, they found that more people were taking part in spiritually inclined New Age activities than were attending Anglican churches. Now, they argue that the spiritual revolution is underway, in which congregational domain is starting to decline. Now, when we talk about the congregational domain, we're talking about the church. We're talking about the Church of England, Catholicism, etc. and the holistic milieu, and by which is where the environment for the New Age is flourishing, is growing. So based on current trends, they estimate the New Age may become more popular than all conventional churches put together by around 2020. Now, they argue that overall subjectivization is taking place in religion, spiritual beliefs and society generally. Now, this involves people emphasizing their own personal choices rather than following instructions from authorities. The New Age is appealing because it allows individuals to choose the spiritual beliefs that fit with their own personal views and lifestyle. As a result, people are moving away from traditional religions where there is little choice about what to believe or how to worship, rather than secularization taking place. They suggest that this has simply been a shift in the type of religious belief that people follows. Now, within the little book that we've got here, there is an essential note which states, this is a crucial study but a controversial one. It is debatable how far the Kendall Project is typical of other parts of the country. It may attract the kind of people more likely to be interested in the New Age. Nevertheless, it is an immensely useful piece of research which offers insights into the whole possible direction of change of religious belief in the UK and similar societies. Next place we're going to look at is secularisation, disengagement and differentiation. Now, some sociologists see secularisation more broadly than in terms of individual beliefs and participation in religious organisations. They focus on declining significance of religion in society. Now, the disengagement of religion involves the withdrawal of the church from wider society. As the church loses power, wealth, prestige and influence, it becomes less involved in politics and social policy as a result, because it has less of an influence over individuals' lives. Now, Steve Bruce in 2002 links these changes to the process of social differentiation, in which separate spheres of social life develop. Now, in Western societies, the logic of capitalist production with an emphasis on profit and efficiency dominates. Religious and spiritual views are marginalised and become part of separate and less important aspects of society. Church is no longer the focal point for diverse communities as a whole, but rather centres for particular minority groups. However, critics of secularisation theory argue that such views are misleading. So we've got Casanova in 1994 who believes that religion is still important in public life. In the 1980s, religion was linked to conflicts such as those between Jews and Muslim Palestinians in the Middle East and between Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland. More recently, fundamentalism demonstrates that continued political importance of religion both in the US and the Muslim world. Now, Talcott Parsons accepts the church has lost many of its former functions in a process called structural differentiation. So, for example, it has less responsibility for education and welfare than it did in the past. However, he believed that in the USA, the church remained very important because Christian values had been generalised. So that means the wider society has accepted the values and norms by which the Christians were promoting, meaning that it became a part of society and underpinned the American way of life. And then this provided value consensus and then provided a good structure for the legal system to base itself off of. Now, secularisation, science and rationality. So a number of sociologists have argued that society has been undergoing a process of desacralisation, in which supernatural forces are no longer seen as controlling the world and action is no longer directed by religious beliefs. Now, this particularly involves an increasing reliance upon scientific knowledge. Now, this view was supported by Comte in 1986, who believed that society started off with theological belief systems based upon religion, but ended up with positivist belief systems based on objective science. Now, we should know this because it's on page 10, by which we've spoken about already, the 3 stages by which society can go through. Now, the note-taking activity, I'm just going to read through the passage by which you guys were meant to have made notes on for Max Weber. Now, this is Max Weber in Disenchantment and Rational Action. So the most influential supporter of the belief that religious belief systems will be replaced by non-religious beliefs was Max Weber. Weber believed that capitalism was characterized by planning in order to maximize profits and by organization using bureaucracies. Now, bureaucracies are organisations that aim to achieve specific ends using a hierarchy of officials and rules to maintain themselves, as well as to provide an appropriate infrastructure for those individuals to follow thereafter. So in the modern world, therefore, rational action based upon deliberate and precise calculation and logic becomes dominant. Now, this is where rational choice theory really comes into play. At the same time, science develops and explains natural phenomena, which were once mysterious. Now, it starts explaining why particular weathering elements start to happen, etc. This leads to that disenchantment. The modern world is no longer charged with mystery and magic anymore. Now, in this situation, there's little room for superstition or religious faith. Scientific rationality becomes dominant and religion gradually declines. Now, Steve Bruce also sees rationalisation as very important in causing secularisation. He argues that technological advances have given individuals a greater sense of control over the natural world and less need to resort to supernatural explanations. Prayer becomes a last resort when scientific and rational solutions to problems have started to fail. However, some sociologists question the view that science and rationalism have replaced superstition and faith. Now, the Kendall Project by Heelis and Woodhead in 2005 suggests that non-rational New Age beliefs are becoming increasingly influential. Now, postmodernism argues that we have become skeptical of scientific rationality because it started to let us down. It's not really started to provide us with appropriate meta-narratives to replace that of religion. So therefore, people now start to turn back to religion and pick those systems by which help to answer the big questions that they face within their lives. So therefore, people start to become spiritual shoppers with an interest in the non-rational. Now, the conclusion on secularisation. So there are going to be 4 points of conclusions here which we're going to look at. So there's a number of possible conclusions that can be made. Now, the first one is how convincing the theory is depends upon which parts of the world you are actually discussing. So in Western Europe, religious participation, belief and influence of churches all seem to have declined. However, in most other parts of the world, including the USA, the Muslim world, Latin America and Africa, religion may have actually started to get stronger. Now, the conclusion may depend upon how you define secularisation as well. So, for example, religion may decline in one way, so the influence of religion on society might decrease, but in another, more people might start to believe in religion. All traditional religious participation and beliefs may decline, but new types of spirituality might start to increase. Therefore, whether secularisation is seen as taking place depends on whether you are using a broad, inclusive definition on religion, which sees religion spirituality as a religion, or an exclusive definition that does not see this as a religion. The evidence that could be seen as inadequate to decide definitely whether secularisation is taking place or not. So, for example, there is a lack of historical evidence about how strong the beliefs of individuals were in the past. They may have attended church because they were compelled to as a mark of respectability, as well as they didn't want to become social pariahs. Now, Keith Thomas in 1977 argues that pre-industrial England contained a lot of scepticism about religion, and the extent to which religion has declined since can therefore be exaggerated. Now, the last and final point here is by Glockenstock in 1969, who argue that it's too simplistic to either support or criticise secularisation. Instead, the concept has to be broken down and related to specific places before it's possible to reach a conclusion. Therefore, it is not therefore one conclusion, but many. Now, that is it in terms of secularisation. If you've got any questions, let me know.